And welcome back to another evening of Ask the Old Man. We have the old man here. How are you, Dad?
Well, the old man's doing pretty good. Had a long day, but feeling all right.
Good. Glad to hear that. Have a good weekend.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Good. I think you were telling me just a bit ago you were catching up on or finishing up with Mission Impossible. How was that?
Yes. Well, we're at the stunt scene where he's the airplane, and I was bragging to Yolanda, I could do that. I can't do all the other stuff, but I can do the flying bit.
Right, right. Uh, I'd like to see that one. Let me know when you go to make that attempt.
Yeah. Well, I got a friend that has that style airplane.
You think we could borrow it?
No,
No.
no.
Okay. Well, maybe with the right bribery we can. So, well, thank you again, once again, for coming here and getting into the topics that are flooding the world right now. There's always something to engage upon. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
More than welcome. What are you going to ask
what
the old
I,
man about?
yeah. So, what are we asking the old man? I think we're going to take a little bit a break from the foreign stuff right now because I'm about up to here, had enough of it with just asking about worldly things. Let's bring it home a bit.
All right.
um and this one is going to be a little bit conflicting with people because you know what, you'll just see why. So what we're going to get into is what I've been engaging in with discussions, especially of the past 24 hours, um, is religion, Christian faith, and all that stuff with society, and as far as American society, um, and how that intertwines, right? First thing I kind of want to engage with you on is okay, we're going to rewind the clocks here. Dad's walking the streets of New York. He's got his time in West Virginia. Tell me about one, what you were taught as far as how American values intertwine with Christian values. Is that true or not? Because some people say that's not true. And tell me kind of like what you remember experiencing. Do you notice a shift from when you were walking the streets as a kid versus the generations walking around now?
Whew, different world, man. When I was growing up on the streets in the city, as far as faith was concerned, um, I heard the adults talk about faith and about God, about the spirit world, things like that. And I remember when I was like 4 years old, my mama, your great grandmother, visited, and she looked the part. She had the linen, and she had the clothes and the cross, and so all. And she was a
Right.
pious lady.
Okay.
Um, so I learned what piety and following standards and rules actually is from her, um, because that was my first introduction outside of the house to these concepts. And she had the book,
Sure.
and the Holy Bible, and it was in Spanish. So and with her cross and all that good stuff. So that was my introduction to it, and I got to hear really about not so much on society, but how we treat each other. The rules of how we treat each other are there, and when you don't treat each other accordingly, there's the stories of what happens to people when they don't.
Sure.
So you hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, about humanity. And I heard it at the level of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. As every year I got a little older, and then the movies, I tell you, the movie, The Greatest Story Ever Told, very impactful. Um, and it, it helped start to make things easier for the brain to chew on these concepts, because it's all concepts. It's faith.
Right.
Now, um, it's historical faith. These are things that happened, right?
Okay.
And the witnesses wrote them down. And so you're learning you're learning history, you're learning theology, you're learning about humanity, so many aspects when you learn in the Christian Bible, the Old and New Testaments, and thankfully I got it in bite-sized pieces. The people who were giving it to me, um, from here and there, many friends, were made it easy to chew on. Isn't the easiest to conceptualize. You got to wrap your brain around some of these things. You know,
Yeah.
um, so when I moved with my foster parents, my foster father's devout Catholic. And by that I mean he had his morning prayers. He followed a lot of the precepts of Catholic living, and that's when I started to learn about applying it into your daily life, because he lived
Right.
his faith. And he was a big guy. He's a big teddy bear, really. Um, Former pro football player, 6'3", 260, massive human being, and that gentle giant kind of stereotype. Loved people outwardly, initially.
Right.
You were his first time meeting him. You were his friend. He was, and he was yours, and vice versa, and all that good stuff. And so he was, um, living it, and and then I discovered how hard it is to live it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
from my dainty little grandmother, it looked pretty easy. At 5, 6, 7 years old, but now I'm 12, 13, 14 years old, and you're more aware of the world. Um, this big sack of hormones is in your body, and one day it pops, and you're like, oh, girls, cool. And you want time with your friends, you want to do these things, you want to do that things, you got work to do. We moved on the farm here and in West Virginia, and therein lies the conflict, the body versus the spirit. And it's very difficult. And so, I began to appreciate the Catholic faith so much more, because just so much of the rules everybody seems to get bogged down in is
Right.
really about focus, what they want you to focus on, and it's just simply Him. And so, we're our humanity really complicates it, right?
Right.
So, you make mistakes along the way. You realize in your heart of hearts where you've done wrong, and you ask forgiveness from the people you've hurt or done wrong or made mistakes with, and you just try to, um, live that life. Um, and it's a struggle, as you're growing and meeting people, and some people are hurting you, some people are double crossing you, some people are using you, and you realize, yeah, scripture's right. This is evil world, and like a roaring lion, right? The Satan seeks to devour.
Right.
And so you really start to live experiences, and you start to put them together. Oh, okay, it was like in this book when and when Job went through all this stuff, right? And David is like a therapist, um, gift Christmas present. All the highs and lows of his life, and you realize he was just a regular human being struggling. And David became very relatable, because um, all those struggles we go through, he went through and he chronicled. And we call them saints not because they were perfect. We call them saints because they got through their struggle,
Right.
and they got to the other side. And you know, the world wants to muddy that. The world wants to say, "Oh, it's this." And so the last thing I'm going to do is take notes about my faith from somebody who doesn't either investigate it thoroughly with an open heart,
Sure.
and they don't want to do it an open heart because they're afraid.
Right.
So they got to attack it. They got to mitigate. They got to minimize it. They got to make you feel bad for it. They got to tell you, oh, it's all BS and nonsense and things like that. And that's okay. That's all right. You don't have
Right.
to. I'm doing my own thing, struggling through the world, trying to make good decisions. They don't always work out. Sometimes good decisions don't work out. Lord knows bad decisions don't work out.
Right.
But that's okay so long as you're appreciative of the struggle, the journey, and you're trying to get where you want to be. And when you find yourself weak, you seek your Redeemer and ask for forgiveness. And it is hard. And the Catholic Church, with the sacrament of confession, it's one of the least utilized sacraments because nobody wants to admit they were wrong, let alone confess to somebody else. You know, and so it's a struggle, and that's what I love about the book. Not only is it a great history book, which I love history, it's really a mirror, and you realize you ain't all about that.
Right.
Anything you may be feeling, gone through it, and for the first time, there's nothing new under the sun. Sorry. If you're feeling like crap for the crap you've done, welcome.
Yeah, that seems to be a lost idea. Um and it's
Now,
an idea
today,
that if you think about it, it's relieving. Uh Not saying that it rights a wrong, but it's relieving to know you're not the first and you won't be the last.
right. And so that struggle with that concept is very simple. And I taught you guys this when you guys were young and you were getting ready to graduate. I said, the whole time, you know, baby till now, as you head towards graduation, the world was all about you. We're going to, you feed you, clothe you, provide a home for you. And so you grow up with the world view of, hey, it's all about me. And I try to teach you as you grew older and your brothers grew older, a little bit more understanding that this world ain't about it. It don't care.
Right.
I was talking to Giancarlo about this a number of years ago, and so I had a newspaper in front of me, and I said, "Hey," and I turned it to the obituary column. I said, "Look at all these people who passed away." He's like, "Yeah," and I turned the page. This is how the world treats it. Eh,
That's rough.
it don't care. The world's going to keep on spinning with you, without you. And so you've got to understand that. And that requires humility. And that's the hardest virtue I've ever found around this planet, within myself and within others. It is hard. We are given the hardest virtue to ascribe to. Oh, love
Yeah.
God with all your heart and love your neighbor like you love yourself. And wait a minute, where do I come into this? You don't.
Yeah, there's no I in that.
So yeah, it's a revelation, and you when you once you get it, then it's real easy. And then you do like my foster father, Paul. You you start working towards applying it in your daily life, your daily routine, um, and on how you, especially on how you treat others,
Right.
and well, you're supposed to love your neighbor like you love yourself. Well, my neighbor's a jerk. Um, there wasn't an exception given, and so you've got to treat your neighbor now today. The all about me, show up and you get the trophy. That's been going on for a couple of decades, and old farts like me 20 years ago were, this generation, there's going to be some real big troubles, because when that when that realization hits you that you're 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 just a flea on the elephant's backside in this world, you know e- and you're not all that.
Right.
That is a moment that a lot of people don't get through, and so they try to come up with things to latch on to show their importance, and I am important. Well, the only thing that you got to be important to is you got to answer to yourself. And and in the trophy decades, it's all about, look at my pedigree, look at my trophies, look at my degrees on the wall. I don't know how to fight out a wet paper bag, but by golly, I spent 12 years at school, you know, in college.
Right.
So this is the struggle, and for people like me, I look at this and say, yeah, we're exactly where we ought to be in our society in those cycles, right? And so we've cultivated a generation of people who want the world to revolve around them,
Mhm.
and if you don't if you don't live up to that narrative that's in their brain, well, you're just evil and you need to be eliminated. And
Sure.
there's people who believe that and go by it, and so you have murders, you have rapes, you have business destruction. People think it's just the physical violence. And look, what take the lady who basically destroyed the Bud Light brand. She don't know what she did wrong. This is what she grew up with. This is
Oh,
what we got to
you
do
mean the
in
dude
her
disguised as a
world.
girl?
That the marketing manager for Bud Light,
Oh,
who,
okay. I thought you were talking about the face that was on it.
yeah, it's that decision,
Right.
and to call, Bud Light drinkers frat boys, and make it a pejorative, make your customer feel like a pejorative in their world. With that worldview, she's doing God's work. This is her God. So, and there's people who raised this person, and there's people who molded these brains and say, "Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. You go get them." And she destroyed a multi-billion-dollar company. And
Yeah.
as you saw with other companies, she's not alone. This is very symptomatic of this belief that I know best because I got the title, I got the degree, this elitism, and I'm in with the right group, and you're not. Therefore, you're a loser, and you're a frat boy, and we don't want you drinking our beer. Well, it's not based in reality. I think we had to talk about this. My
Sure.
philosophies are all based on what I read, what I understood, what I was given, and how it really works in reality. And that's why I love the Old Testament and the New Testament apart and together, because it tells the truth on humanity. It's not a pretty story. You look what Moses
Right.
did, and David, and Noah, and this is these were Judas. Um, so at least it's real. And as archaeologists are finding every year, more and more, more and more, these towns existed, these societies existed. People worship this way, people worship that way. And so all these things that happened, we can prove through archaeology, through eyewitnesses, through non believers' writings. Pagans wrote about these things. And so, um, there was really these battles. There was really a battle between this king and that group versus that group. And there really was an Egyptian pharaoh named Ramses. There was, I think, three of them, at least. So that's what I like, is that the philosophy is all about based on reality. And as I've been a technician all my life, I have to base my work on reality. You touch the wrong wire and take it to ground, your history, and we got to call your loved ones. You know,
Right.
so I've always had to live in the real world, not in concepts. And so at a very young age, I was blessed with people who allowed me some morsels of concepts, and it is a blessing, to develop. Okay, you know what I think Paul says, milk and bread. I'm not giving you the meat, potatoes. I'm giving you the milk and bread, to an early church that he had founded. So I was allowed that growth, and didn't follow it perfectly, uh, but certainly I understand it a whole lot better, and I can see today, after 60 plus years on the planet. Oh yeah, I see where I messed up. I see where I messed up. I see. Okay, I know where that person messed up. I know where and the vast majority of those mess up is when you don't follow the belief system,
Right.
and then it takes the personal integrity to admit it, to seek that other person or people out, to ask for forgiveness, and even harder to do that is to actually make amends, to atone for it. So there's a process to this, and too many people just want to say, "Well, I'm sorry," and Christian, you got to forgive me. It doesn't work that way. Okay, um, let's recognize what you've done wrong. Be really sorry for what you've done wrong. What are you going to do to make amends and atone for it? I got to do all that. Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, No, I want out. I want to go to the Church of Nice, where I just sing along and we're all happy family. Okay, you do you.
Yeah. It's that part I've witnessed, and I've witnessed a lot. Do you think so? I've had this question. I've tried to ask this to some people. Didn't think I was really not like I was looking for a specific answer. I just wanted to know if my head was pointed in the right direction, because here in the United States, we have a laundry list of denominations of Christianity,
Uh-huh.
from Catholic Orthodoxy all the way to Joe Schmo opening up his garage and inviting a few guys over to
Yeah,
to just talk. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Um, Church is the community itself, you know.
correct.
Um, but I'm just wondering, because even then, I still see that Christians like to just like political parties, just like sporting events, they like to huddle with their team in the denominations. And I'm trying to understand what could be at the root of like why there's such a disconnect right now amongst American Christians. And I wonder if maybe you understand what I mean by this question. I asked somebody, I was like, do you think it's possible that Protestants um, do or focus too much on the evangelization of people, and really just trying to huddle in the masses and not focus on so much of the historical, the ritual, or the ceremonial things. And just from my perspective, when I see Orthodoxy and Catholics, they are more focused on the ceremonial, the ritual, the historical, and not doing enough evangelizing. Um, I like, do you see where I'm going with that? Like,
Yes.
because
Okay.
before you get there, one last little tidbit is
Uh huh.
that me being I've considered myself, listen, I didn't know which way to go. I just knew that I had a really good group of guys, a really good family network that finally opened my eyes to Christ. And it's just non-denominational. I just want to read the Bible. I want to understand the stories. I want to understand the gospel. I want to understand what Christ did for me.
Yep.
That's all I want to understand. But when I look at the Protestants and then you got the Orthodox and the Catholics into that question, that's why I have that question, because I see that behavior. What is your take on that?
Okay. So first of all, always excited about the group that you met that led you uh, to those decision making and to your ultimate baptism. Yeah, that was uh, that's one of my happier moments in life. You know, you and Mikey and Julio and itself. Um, to witness that as and the age that you went through that, it's easy for kids who grow up with it,
Sure.
you know, but to witness that is a blessing, and as a father I couldn't be more excited about it. The challenges with the orthodoxy versus the Protestantism has been there from day one.
Yeah.
Okay, so um you right at you read into Acts, and then in secular writings right after you can read what was going on, and that is humanity.
Sure.
That is the hubris and of humanity. The arrogance of humanity is to stay humble and say, okay, tell me again, how does this work again? Where is it? What did he teach? Oh, so he prophesied about this 800 years ago and it came true. Well, okay. Uh, and so as people start to put these things together, the hardest thing to do is to stay humble and seek that information and like Legos, just start adding to it. There comes a point in your own life where you say, well, I don't particularly agree with that. And so, first of all, if it's written, if it's what we call scriptura, I don't care if you don't agree with it, it's written. Too bad.
Right.
There is a written formula for gravity. If you don't agree with it, I can't help you. Jump off the bridge. It's going to come true.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So,
fantastic.
So now when it comes to understanding interpretations, well, that's where it gets um, a big divide, a big chasm, you know. And I think it's in Peter that he says that it's really not subject to um, interpretation. Oh, but I'm a human being and I can add two plus two and I could add this up. Okay, you do you. And um, so what what Protestantism did initially in the when we're talking Reformation, Protestantism, not schisms of people who broke up in heresies and stuff like that. They typically had typically one issue: the divinity, the sacramental living, something, the virgin birth, and they would hang their faith, this new faith, around that issue. All the other stuff is true, but we don't agree with that. Okay, you know, and that's always been my bugaboo. I say, wait a minute, you say the written word is the written word, nothing else. Well, here's what the written word says.
Right.
And so, hey, um, and then you get the challenges. People want to beat up on you verbally, physically, whatever, and well, you're not perfect. Nobody is. The church is not for the righteous. It's for the sinners. It's for the sick. People, healthy people don't walk into hospitals. You know,
Right.
so
I had a pastor that I heard once say, um, the problem with the church, and I think he meant the church just encompassing everyone,
uh-huh.
was um the fact that it's become a museum for saints and not a hospital for the sick.
Yes, yes, and
And
this is you talk about the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church evangelizing the church as a whole, and there are many parishes, and I've traveled the countryside and I've
yeah,
been to a lot of churches across the countryside. It does a very poor job. The Holy Church does a very poor job of evangelizing, and that's because we are the evangelists. It is our job by our living. But you talk about vocations is what you were talking, and Paul has scripture on this, and I'm not a great chapter and verse um, guy, but he talks about we all have our gifts,
right.
okay, and so people, I'm into storytelling and the history. The
Yes.
miracle stuff still blows my mind because remember I'm a technician. This don't make sense, but I take it on faith.
Sure.
Okay, the witnesses said this is what happened. Okay,
And they died for it.
and
That's
they
the
died
crucial
for it.
part.
Yeah, yeah, and they were willing to die for this. So, yes, the church can do a whole lot better. There is a cycle right now. Bishop was at church yesterday. We had first communion for several people, and he said that our church is growing here in West Virginia, even though the population is going down. Young people are come. They're looking. They're looking for answers and they're finding it, which is great. And we went from four seminarians to, I think, 13, I think it was.
Okay.
So that's big. Now, there were some cultural challenges that happened post what we in the Holy Church we know as Vatican II. That was a big discussion from the Vatican, from the papal offices about how we should not interpret scripture, but interpret the rules of the church. And all I can tell you, if you give somebody an inch, they're going to want to take a mile. And so um, the church abuses did not help. The scandals of the church abuses themselves, the handling of how they were done, the cover ups, the societies within these groups that were secretly doing things and how those issues were handled have been horrific. Now, um, I once talked to an insurance agent And he says, well, it happens in the Protestant church too, because insurance companies do the payouts of organized churches.
Mm,
So I was like, oh, that was new to me. And so when a church deacon pastor goes off the rails, they get sued, and the church insurance has got to pay out. So the trouble with us humans is that we're human, and the church is full of human beings, and very highly imperfect human beings who are struggling, who are trying to find their way through this world. And
right.
the more you keep it at that level, the better off you are. Just keep it at that. It is a struggle. It's a daily struggle. When somebody cuts me off on the road, okay, you know, um, those are kind of typical societal issues, but there are very subtle issues, things that happen at work, interplay in family, in the church. When you go to church, oh, somebody said this, somebody said that, the gossip of the church. Woo! I'm not one to gossip, but
Yeah.
okay, so the trouble with us humans is that we're human, and it's a struggle. And if you just stay humble and realize everybody, from the priest or your pastor, the bishop, the deacons, everybody has a struggle or more, or two, three, or more. And they have secrets in their pack. They have baggage. Maybe they've reformed, but they're still bringing the baggage with them, and they haven't let go of it yet.
Sure.
You know, so we're all struggling. That's why we got to love up on each other. Oh, but he's a jerk. She doesn't like she made a complaint about the church picnic. I burnt the bread. I left, I left something on the pot boil over, you know. In our church, somebody decide, hey, I will start the dishwasher. Great. Only they put in regular soap and not dishwasher soap. So
They had a bubble
this
party, didn't they?
this 20-foot wall of bubbles started streaming out of the kitchen. And then you want to, hey, what are you doing? But you know what? You
Right.
just gotta, and it's hard. You want to choke these. What about? Oh, and so there's all kinds of fun things that we can look at and point fun at. But we humans are human, and we will prove this every day. The
Right.
mistakes I've made, I try to do something right, and no good deed goes unpunished. Yeah. Oh, you did this, but you ended up damaging that, and I was working on that. Okay. So, hey, can you get this done by the 15th? Sure. And it's the 20th, and you haven't had time from work, or, I'm sorry, I can't take care of it right now. I've had all these things come in. Oh, and so it's just life. And we got to stop taking ourselves so serious. Well, I hold such and such title of minister, and I say this.
Yeah.
Get over
Well,
yourself.
yeah, it definitely. Well, it's I sit here because I asked that question because that question for me goes super deep with it, and it's how I'm trying to view the nation, because I feel like as Christians, all we're doing to ourselves is just shooting ourselves in the foot
Hmm.
right now.
Yeah.
Um, Not that it's the first time,
Nope.
won't be the last time,
Nope.
but you know, th- not I think we can go more into this in another episode, but just trying to get an understanding, a basic understanding to continue. Where is it that we derive this idea of separation of church and state? Because here's here's what I see. A lot of people are stuck on that social concept that's definitely pushed in public school. Well, we can't have a state and a church together because that breaks First Amendment rights. And then like it's like the line is drawn there and that's it. There's no further explanation. There's no deep dive on this. And I'm of the understanding that all you have to do is go back to the original state constitutions, and all of them required a declaration of faith. All of them. And I think more than half of them required you to declare Christ as Lord. So it didn't matter which one you were, Catholic or Protestant, although I think a couple states where you had to be Catholic
No,
to be
the
a
opposite.
representative, or the opposite. Okay, see,
Yeah.
this is why I'm asking the old man. So so but regardless, that was a thing. And
Yes.
I get why the founders they didn't want a Church of America, to my understanding. That's not something they foresaw because they did see a higher government in the church um uh creating problems back from their home country in the UK. They saw that. So they were firsthand witnesses to that. So they didn't have that. So where did this start to get shoehorned in from your understanding that no matter what, from top to bottom, it's a separation of church and state?
Okay. Great. Yeah, this can get deep, but let's take our American history. We started as colonies, and basically each colony was a corporation of the king. They
Really
had
quick,
charters. They were
really quick,
corporate charters.
really quick. Just what you say there, because I want to put emphasis on this because you've taught me this that they were what? They were corporate.
They're corporations of the king.
Okay, because that's something that people need to understand that's not taught. They don't they
No,
the view of those colonies and the word corporation are a million miles apart in school.
that's where we get the word company from. Okay, so a company of men or a group of like-minded men with a certain mission. And so when I live in West Virginia, which was carved out of Virginia, so you go to the original Virginia charters, and you'll see where the king declared this company of men to be in charge of this municipal corporation, this charter called the Virginia Colony. And so it's a corporation, has a name, it has a board of directors. How are they going
Right.
to proceed? How are they going to go forward? The cut that's going to get sent back to London. What you're doing for, and one of the functions of the charter was to spread the gospel. And this is throughout the colonies. They were essentially corporate theocracies. So you got to understand how England expanded so quickly, and it was through the corporate structure and financing the corporate structure. Spain, Portugal, a little didn't have this very well. The Dutch, to a degree, was pretty good at it, but they mastered their expansion through creating a corporation, financing it, and then paying that finance fee through the growth of the colony. It had to provide. Now, the Mayflower was a little different. Those were people who were escaping tyranny as they saw it on the Mayflower Compact and created their own little bubble at their Plymouth, what we call today Plymouth, Massachusetts. But once it outgrew and other colonies started, it got incorporated into the Massachusetts Bay colonies and the Rhode Island colonies. So they were all theocracy, and because of King James, because they already kicked out the Catholic monarchy after the War of the Roses, uh, post War of the Roses, the Americas became a Protestant set of colonies. Where they didn't was Rhode Island and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was run by the Quakers, who said, "Come one, come all." Rhode Island was basically the same. The Rhode Island Plantations, I believe, was the original name.
Right.
And so the rest were Protestant colonies, and only white Protestants could own land, and therefore those were the people who participated in government. Because who are you to participate in the government if you don't have no skin in the game?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a big one.
So yeah, so again, lack of history, we don't understand that. So there was, for Virginia's sake, I think there was second and third charters, and it gets deeper than that. You got to read the charters. They had a purpose, they had a mission, like every corporation does. Okay, so IBM Corporation, Apple, they all, this is what we're going to do. These are our bylaws, and here's how we're going to operate.
Right.
Okay, those corporations at the time of the revolution lost their sovereign. So the sovereignty of running that state, that government, that's why they went from colonies to states, because they were become a corporate state without a sovereign over them. And so
Okay.
we became the sovereigns, the consent of the governed, where that is really made into an epistle was really the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Okay. And the separation of church and state was created at the Declaration of Independence, because when we lost our sovereign, King George, we also lost the Church of England.
Mm,
So we
right.
lost both. So the separation of church and state existed at the time of the Declaration, self evidently.
Okay.
So that was the mechanics behind it. We lost our sovereign and we lost our church. So the separation of church existed right from then on. Okay. Here in the colonies. Okay. They rewrote their constitutions based on carrying the English common law.
Right.
It's quite telling when you read the original constitutions of the 13 colonies when they rewrote their charters into constitutions. Okay. We don't have a sovereign, so we don't owe all this stuff that we do to the sovereign. We owe it to ourselves and our posterity, is the word they like to use, for our children, grandchildren. Okay, the society as a whole. So the people who participated in government were the people who had skin in the game as the point of the creation of the state, which was from in at least in 11 of the colonies, that was white Protestant males. Okay. So you had a lot of humanity flowing through these colonies, and the Methodists didn't trust the Baptists, and the Baptists were Anabaptists who didn't trust the Northern Baptists, who didn't trust the Southern Baptists, and and then of course nobody trusted the Catholics in Rhode Island, because they're Catholic.
Right.
So and then the Jewish, what was the euphemism, the brothers or sons of Abraham, children of Abraham. That's how they didn't use the word the Jews, they would the children of Abraham.
Right.
Okay, which were all adopted. So it's like, hey, did you not get that part? The Gentiles are adopted into. Okay, never mind. Anyway, so the separation of church and state was instituted at the time of declaration, mechanically speaking, because we lost our sovereign, and the sovereign was the head of the church. So what we understand at that time was no state was going to institute a church, create a church, and that executive power was going to ride also into the church. There's no executive authority over the church. That's the separation. It doesn't say that Christians can't participate in government and can't bring their philosophies to it. I've told people, and many of them used to be my friends, if you don't have a faith or a political philosophy, it doesn't run your political philosophy, you don't have either of the two. You're a fraud.
Right.
Okay, hard, but how do you live a philosophy and not live out your faith? Now, I'm not saying you're perfectly living out your faith. That's not what I'm saying. We're all imperfect. Okay. But there's got to be some underpinning here. Okay. And they were already there for a couple of 100 years. Well, yeah. So, those are the things that um, we bring in because it got brought into our legal system. We carry forward all the laws. So if you got post Declaration of Independence, if you were caught stealing from the apple cart, well, that was a common law crime based on common law. And, somebody caught you, well, they take you to the sheriff. Okay. Well, that system was English. Well, we brought that along and we kept it with us. So we kept our English common law. All right. And then we kept the law of equity, which the contract law. And so long as they were separated and apart, we were fine. This thing of administrative law was a function of the Roman code of law, French, um, Spanish. The law governing how we handled government is different in Louisiana and in some of the territories like Puerto Rico. They have Spanish civil law. Uh, Louisiana was French civil code. So there's some underpinnings that were a little different. But for the rest of us, originally, separation of church state happened at the formal signing of the Declaration. That's when it separated. We kicked our king out. We kicked his church out. And now government, according to the Declaration of Independence, is instituted to protect my right to go to the church I want to go to, or create a church of my own, or have a faith of my own. I want to worship dandelions. Okay.
So here's probably as of late one of the biggest things that I struggle with as a Christian, and I think it comes from I believe it comes from a love of my faith because I want to see myself, my family, those around me have a strong faith. But my also love for country is that I know some I try to learn every day, but I understand where our value sets, what they're based on, and a lot of that, like you just demonstrated, where that common law comes in, how that gets brought forward. What I struggle with is like it almost seems like from the get go that we've allowed ourselves from the beginning to struggle to hold a Christian nation. And I don't know if that makes sense. Like we we've written things into our constitution. We've set ourselves up, and our founders vocalized things in such a way to allow freedom. And trust me, I'm all about freedom, but I'm also speaking as a Christian. Like, why can't I have my nation follow in the value set like other nations can do? If that makes sense, it's almost
Oh, okay.
I
So
don't I know it's weird. It's just I view other nations, they can sit there and say what they want, and they can hold truth to that. But God forbid if I say, "Hey, I want America to be a Christian nation based on Christian values." Well, now I'm stepping on someone else's freedom. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
It
and
seems
and
like we're
so
hurting ourselves on that.
yeah, so this is the dichotomy, and it's also a challenge where your own freedoms are used against you in order to tear those freedoms down. And this is a huge challenge. This is some of the discussions that they had at the founding. Okay, these are not easy answers to attain, because every human being wants to be sovereign. Now we have our independence. We all want that sovereignty and my castle, my land, my home rule, um, which we really need to get back to. And the challenge with that is no no person has the right to injure another person physically or with their faith, right?
Okay.
So my neighbor goes to a different church. In my heart of hearts, I'm free to hold that against him, but I can't attack his dog, his property, him, his wife for it.
Sure.
Okay, so now I'm actively doing something to injure him. Okay, not only do I got to answer to my faith, but now I'm doing a something wrong civilly or criminally. Okay, so the lack of knowledge on how our system is designed and designed to work versus how it actually works, there's a big void. There's a big void between the two. And that has become through the administrative state. We've requested benefits from the state, unwittingly handing over that sovereignty to the state. And so now we're bound by the rules of those benefits and what we got to do. Okay. And in the administrative state, there is no Christ. It's the administrator. I'm a pilot. That's how it's referred to. I got to apply to the administrator. I got to send this letter to the administrator. There was an issue. I got to respond to the administrator. And if the administrator says the sky's pink, sky's pink. Okay. So you move yourself from different bodies of law, jurisdictions, and nobody's taught this. Now, back in the 1800s, all the way into even to the early 1900s, this was taught, okay, in primary school, because your primary education had to teach you. And that's why you had to learn Hebrew and Latin, because Hebrew was to learn the Bible, and Latin because the law was written and held to be steady in Latin. It's a dead language. So, the word modus operandi, quid pro quo, those are all Latin phrases. Okay. Ab initio. Okay. These are things that phrases that are thrown out there not to be cute, but they're legal terms and held in Latin because they only mean what they mean in Latin. That's it. And so we're not taught this. So a kid going through eighth grade, first in a one-room schoolhouse, had a better education than kids coming out of college, because they learned Hebrew to read their Bible and how to relate to society, humanity, and to your brother and your sister and your neighbor. And the rules, the common law was written into Latin phrases, and so you had to know what they were. And so you and this is how you got along. Okay,
Right.
so a farmer can go down to a notary and do a quick claim deed, or make a contract to purchase, because he or she was exercising their God-given rights to contract. Okay, so if there's, where do rights come from? My existence creates the right. Okay, I exist, therefore I have rights. Well, how did they come from God? Because we declared them so and instituted governments to protect those rights. Okay, so these are still concepts, even though they're written down just like scripture. These are concepts, but they're written down and we take them on faith as fact. This is our level set. This is our zero.
Right.
Okay. And if we don't injure our neighbor or our neighbor's property, we live in peace. And I remain at liberty. I throw a brick through my neighbor's window. I get arrested and charged, which is a bill. I've injured, therefore I got to pay. Okay. These words have meaning. Charges, bills, bailiff. Those are people who collect debts. I'm in debt to society. I'm in debt to my neighbor for breaking their window. All these terms aren't taught anymore. Bailiff today is that guy in the court that reads you you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth. That's it. Maybe brings in a witness or something. That's a bailiff. No, 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 no. And so it's a lot more to it. And so because that has been taken out and slowly replaced with the administrative state, now we got to play in a whole body of law. And every state has this. It has a body of administrative law. And you can say administrative law of Florida, administrative law of Maryland, and you will see who's under under administrative law. So you'll see this really shine in the great state of the Republic of Texas. From inception, Texas had a police force called the Texas Rangers. Still do. With or without Chuck Norris, it's up to you.
May
Okay?
he rest in peace.
Rest in peace, absolutely. But so I ask you, if the Republic of Texas already had a police force called the Texas Rangers, why did they institute the Texas State Police?
Would that have to do with the corporation side of it?
The corporation created benefits and administrative law to manage those benefits, and they are the enforcers of the administrative law. They're also granted the right to arrest you for common law violations and stuff like that. But you got to understand there's different jurisdictions and there's different bodies of law that are operable with inside those jurisdictions. None of this is taught. And I had concepts of this through my foster parents. Okay, they talked about this and the encroachments back in the '60s and '70s that they witnessed, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And I had to go grab the dictionary and grab the encyclopedia and say, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand this. So let's take a simple transaction where I'm going to pay you to mow my lawn. I'm going to pay you
Right.
$50 to cut my grass, my front lawn. Okay. So you take a couple hours, you cut and you weed eat and make it all beautiful. Great job, Ben. Um, I didn't get to the bank yet, so I don't have the $50. Do you take credit card? He said, yeah, I got this cool little app, okay. Whoop whoop ding. And you've accepted my payment. Well, we went from contract law where I was going to pay you to provide me a service. Okay, so two parties agreeing with an exchange of money for a product or service equals a contract that a court of law has to enforce. But you accepted my credit card in lieu of payment. We just moved into Uniform Commercial Code, UCC, and now we're in a different body of law.
Just
We're
like that.
accept What's that?
I said just like that.
Just like that, because under UCC, acceptance is completing the contract. So rather than pay you, I tendered a payment and you accepted. Okay. So now I have different rights and obligations. I went from contract into UCC, and just like that. All right. None of this is taught. Okay. Worse, the fact that I was going to pay you in monopoly money is a legal tender. It's not in gold or silver, which is not the only gold and silver is money. So by paying you a $50 bill or a couple 20s and a 10, I've tendered you a note from the Federal Reserve and you accepted it. So it can get really deep. There's a big rabbit hole here. The answer to your questions is it's not taught. So we fall into these big holes. That's why when you joined the military, your first full day, what's the first thing they taught you was your chain of command, UCMJ. You have to understand the jurisdiction you're in and the body of law that governs your actions and how you play in that jurisdiction, in that sandbox. So,
Yeah.
why do we have so many problems? 99.9% of the people are ignorant. They're not bad people, just trying to get through life, working with what they understand is the norm, what we're supposed to do, but they're not taught how to work in the system and what are the benefits of each. What are the what could befall you in each? What are your rights? What are your obligations in each system? And when you get down to reserving your rights and then things get really crazy. Just just demand a jury trial. How many times have you heard, well, a judge declared this person this and that? Well, wait a minute. Aren't we supposed to have a jury for all our cases?
I guess a good example would be the red light cameras.
Under common law, I have a common law right to confront my accuser. Hello, Mr. Camera. How do you do? Where were you on the night? All right. So, this is a problem. Okay. And under administrative law, and it's anything goes. The administrator writes the rules and you got to pitch a fit. There you are guilty and you have to prove your innocence. Try the IRS. Oh, we say you owe $2 million. Well, no, I don't. And they say, prove it.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when you got to prove a negative. You're like, you know, I had an issue with the FAA when I had a medical issue, and I had to prove I didn't have what I didn't have medically. Well, I don't have it, but you got to prove it. But
Right.
but so I really upset the FISDO when I called him. I said, "Well, prove to me you don't beat your wife." Okay, so no, we're not on speaking terms anymore. But my point was made. How do you prove and don't? How do you prove it? You don't prove a negative. It's lunacy. So the system is designed to keep you in that barrel, and that's what it's all designed about. Get you out of your freedoms and your liberties and put you in an administrative state where everything we say goes. And we know it's tough because it's hard to live outside of that
Right.
because everybody has been so accustomed to doing business this way where if you say, well, that's not actually how it works, you're a radical nut job, you're a right-wing kook, you're fill in the blank. But these laws didn't just appear out of nowhere. Somebody wrote them down.
Yeah.
Somebody created this. And why?
Yeah. It's I appreciate you kind of breaking that down because I just try to get it, like I said, the questions come from a love of faith, of my faith, and a love for my country, and it's like I don't want to see us basically, I know this sounds weird. It's like I want people to have freedoms, but it's like I'm watching people have freedom to the point where it's like we're destroying ourselves almost.
Well,
And
again,
that's the
you
hard
can't
part.
harm you don't have the freedom to harm somebody. That freedom doesn't exist.
Well, I
So,
maybe not so much. I'm not. Maybe you have your definition of harm is broader, but it's like maybe more so it's like laws that, I mean, a lot of laws just dictate behavior. You are allowed to do this or you're not allowed to do this. And it's like we've rescinded a lot of, you know, uh maybe laws that would have been uh pro a Christian faith, or maybe we just got to a point, it's the flip side, and it's like one of those situations where you sit there and go, I can't believe we're at a point where we actually have to legislate this. Like,
yeah. Yeah, that happens
that's
a lot.
that's just where I see it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating to taking away people's rights, but it's just as a Christian, I hate to see the Christian faith struggle. Because I, from a standpoint of just watching it get legislated out.
Yeah, well, that's
Like,
because good Christian men allow that to happen. They don't know their faith. They don't know how their faith works, well, not only in themselves but in society. And when somebody attacks surreptitiously or directly, doesn't matter, through the front door, back door, they don't stand up to it. Oh, I don't want to be labeled racist, fascist, the label. I don't want the label. I don't want the label. Well, all right, then get rolled over, be a doormat. And that has happened a lot. It has happened a lot, especially over the last, I would say, 100 years. It has really accelerated post World War II. Um, and good men are not standing up and saying, "Time out. We got a problem here,"
right.
because the administrative state does not appreciate that, and will people in the administrative state will seek you out to do you harm, to ruin your reputation, to put you through what we call today lawfare. The
Mhm.
process is the punishment, and they will do all these administrative things to you. And Obama rescinded licenses to companies to dig coal that they got permitted. They went through the EPA. They got all the things processed, and they started digging. And Obama came in here back when he was president and shut several of them down. The non-union ones, by the way. Um, so, they went through the process, did everything right, but we have to review these applications for what? So you either negligently approved me before or you're incompetent. Which is it? Oh,
Yes,
neither. You did it on purpose to hurt the company.
right.
And so these are again, administratively, you have to go to their courtroom with their, take their ball and play on their court with their rules and beat them.
Right.
Okay. And that's how it's set up. Okay. And good people don't know how to extract themselves from that or pull them out of that and bring it into maybe an Article 3 court and sue there and pull these people out and say, I'm going to hold you personally responsible. Okay. So
Yeah.
this, we, the population is so ignorant about this stuff. So when some right wing kook in the mountain says, hey, do you understand how this law really works? What are you talking about? It's news to me. Okay. And then, well, I've been doing this all my life, so I'm just gonna go along just to get along and whatever, pay the fine and whatever. And I'll take the jab, whatever. No, I didn't take the jab to keep my job.
Yeah, I remember you sharing that story. Um,
Paid for it, but I sleep very comfortably knowing I did the right thing. I stood up for myself. Oh, you lost your job, Joe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I work for
Well.
myself now. You're not. You don't have to take the jab. Okay.
Oh, that's funny. I wish more people, understood this concept, but here we are. Um, but listen, Dad, thank you for coming in tonight. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. I had some more questions for you, but I think we can make a whole new episode out of that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do some more digging
Yeah.
and be ready to ask the old man some more questions. Do you have anything else before we head on out?
Well, I appreciate you asking the old man. I hope it's a benefit to you and to your listeners here. And if there's something bugging you, put it in a response and in a comment, or ask Ben directly, and maybe he'll bring it up to me, and I'll give you one old man's perspective of it.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Before we close out, I did want to share one thing. Not going to go into too much detail. I just wanted to express this because I know my heart's hurting a little bit right now. We've had a friend of mine. Her name's Jill. She's the one that cuts my hair. She's my barber.
Okay.
I got to meet her and her husband. Um, when I started my first HVAC job in the commercial world, I was doing all their barber shops, AC work, and
Ah,
I got to meet
cool.
them and fantastic people. But I wanted to share and have a quick moment of prayer because her husband, Marshall, is no longer with us.
Oh,
He is a fellow brother in arms. He did serve, to my understanding. He was, I'll just leave it at this. He was battling some things and one thing led to another. So,
mm,
I'm going to take a moment, say a quick prayer for them. If we can just have that really quick.
sure.
Father in heaven, I pray to you. Um, I could see it in Jill. She was hurting. She was asking many questions, and a lot of them were pointed to you, Lord. I ask that you just reach down and I know her heart is hardened right now, but she is seeking you. She was asking me questions and she's looking for understanding, Lord. I pray that you are able to help her and comfort her, um, and just give complete blessings to that family right now as they go through their grief. They are wonderful people. I know Marshall is a great man. We shared a lot of good stories together. Anytime I had an opportunity to work with him, Lord. But I just pray that you bring this family into your arms and help Jill get the answers that she's seeking, Lord. I pray this in your son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. God rest his soul, and peace be upon Miss Jill. Absolutely.
So I appreciate that. Thank you for taking that time.
Sure.
I'm working behind the scenes right now to see if I can get some fellow church members who are in various different things career wise in their lives to help them. So,
Yes.
yep, just pray for them. And there's a lot of people out there going through this. So,
Yes, there is, sadly. Yeah. A lot.
um, so thank you.
You're more than
Uh,
welcome.
yep. So we are going to pick this up, guys. Thank you again. Please like, subscribe. Dad gave you the call out there. If you have a question for him, please comment. If you think you have a different perspective, let us know.
Well,
And
yeah.
maybe we can kind of trade ideas back and forth to see who's thinking what and how we can kind of come to an understanding. So we're all for it. So hope you guys have been enjoying the content.
Yeah.
Share this out to anyone and everyone, and we'll see you guys next time. You take care, Dad.
All right. God bless. We'll see you soon.